Rain poured relentlessly at O'Hare International Airport on a stormy April evening in 2025. The usual buzz of airport chatter was drowned by the rumble of thunder as Maya Jackson, a 42-year-old black tech CEO, stood at gate C-19, clutching her first-class ticket to Tokyo. Her tailored blazer clung to her damp skin, her dark eyes burning with quiet fury. She wasn't nervous, not really, but the sting of being dismissed, the familiar, bitter feeling of not being believed, coursed through her like an electric current. Minutes earlier, she had handed her ticket to the gate agent, Tara Holmes, with the cool confidence of someone who had earned her place at the top. Tara, a wiry woman in her 30s, had taken one glance at the ticket and sneered, ripping it apart in front of her. The gate agent's cruel, dismissive words cut deeper than any physical wound. "It's fake. You don't belong here." Security was called almost immediately, and Maya had been escorted away, the jeers and whispers from nearby passengers echoing in her ears. The sting of racism wasn't new to her, but being publicly humiliated like this, in front of strangers, on her way to a billion-dollar deal in Tokyo, that was different. But Maya didn't panic. Instead, her mind went cold. She slipped her phone from her pocket, dialed a number only a select few knew, and whispered just 3 words. "It's time." Within moments, the scene changed. The security officers, who had been rough with her just minutes ago, suddenly released her without explanation. The whispers of the crowd grew louder, questions and suspicions swirling around her, but she didn't care. They were too late. What had just happened wasn't a delay. It was the beginning of something bigger, and now it was time to make them pay. Maya stormed back to gate C-19, her steps determined, every muscle in her body coiled with the type of focused rage she had learned to wield in moments like this. The Chicago downpour soaked her blazer, but she didn't care. She wasn't about to let some petty gate agent and their bias ruin her chance. As she neared the counter, the agent, Tara, looked up, a smug smirk creeping across her face. Maya could already see the look of satisfaction in her eyes, like she'd won something. It was all too familiar. "You're back, huh?" Tara's voice dripped with mockery, her gaze flicking over Maya's appearance. "First class isn't for everyone, sweetie. You sure you're in the right place?" The words stung, sharper than before. A few nearby passengers turned to watch the unfolding drama, some eyeing Maya with disbelief, others amused by the spectacle. Maya clenched her jaw and pushed the torn ticket across the counter with smooth, deliberate movements. Her voice, when it came, was steady, dangerously so. "Check it. Seat 3B, Apex Air Flight 917 to Tokyo. No mistake." Tara snatched the ticket as if it were contaminated, her fingers tapping it against the laminate with exaggerated care. She squinted, holding it up to the light, then flicked her eyes back to Maya, sizing her up. "Looks fishy to me," Tara muttered loud enough for the small crowd to hear, her words hanging like an accusation. "We've had issues with fakes lately." Before Maya could respond, Tara punched a button on her headset, her eyes flicking toward the back office with a look that said she was about to summon reinforcements. A few seconds later, a man emerged from the shadows. Victor Grayson, a grizzled customer service manager who seemed as if he had spent the last 3 decades dodging complaints and accusations. He waddled over, a wall of bureaucracy in human form. His gaze locked on Maya, cold and judgmental. "You don't look like a CEO," he said flatly, his words like a challenge, his tone thick with suspicion. Maya sat in the back of a cab, staring out at the rain-slicked streets of Chicago as the city passed by in a blur of neon and wet pavement. Her phone buzzed incessantly in her lap, each message a reminder of the war she had just begun. The viral video from her confrontation at O'Hare was already climbing in views, the comments flooding in faster than she could read. "Racist much? Sue them, Maya! Boycott Apex Air." Her heart swelled with a mixture of pride and exhaustion. The backlash was immediate, but it was only the beginning. She wiped the rain from the window, her reflection staring back at her, hardened and unyielding. The last few hours had been a whirlwind, from the airport to the public humiliation, to the moment she had taken control, turning the tables with the live stream. But even as she had exposed the ugly truths of Apex Air's racism, Maya knew the fight wasn't over. Not by a long shot. She needed to be ready for the fallout. Her phone buzzed again, This time a text from Liam Carter, her COO at Horizon Innovations. The team's already working on the media strategy. I've got the PR team on it. We're taking this viral. They're not getting away with it. Maya smiled faintly, grateful for the loyalty that had never wavered since the early days of Horizon. But this wasn't just a PR stunt. It was a reckoning. It was time to show Apex O'Hare and anyone else who underestimated her that she wasn't going down without a fight. She pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders, her mind racing as she plotted her next move. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for every woman of color who had been silenced, for every person who had ever been told they didn't belong. This was bigger than the airport, bigger than Apex Air. It was about changing the system. The cab pulled up outside a nondescript hotel, its neon sign flickering in the rain. Maya paid the driver and stepped out, feeling the weight of the day settle deeper into her bones. The hotel lobby was quiet, save for a few weary travelers slumped in chairs, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of their phones. Maya barely registered the lobby attendant as she passed, her focus solely on the next steps. She needed rest. Of that she was sure, but not before taking action. As soon as she reached her room, Maya locked the door behind her, tossed her soaked blazer onto the bed, and pulled out her laptop. The screen flickered to life, and she immediately opened her secure email account. She typed quickly, sending a message to Priya, her head of IT. "Get me every backup we've got. I need everything. I don't trust Apex to stop at the viral video." She hit send and leaned back in the chair, taking a long breath. The weight of it all was starting to press in on her, but there was no time to crumble. Not now. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Liam. "The team's ready. We're setting up a press conference tomorrow morning. You're going to speak. It'll put Apex on notice. I've got a lawyer lined up to start investigating their actions." Maya rubbed her temples, exhaustion creeping in despite her resolve. But she couldn't afford to be tired. Not yet. Tomorrow was the day she would go public, the day the world would hear her story, and the world would finally see what Apex had tried to hide. She would fight back, and this time, she wasn't alone. She was surrounded by people who believed in her, who saw the truth in her struggle. This wasn't just about reclaiming her seat on the plane. It was about taking down a corrupt system, piece by piece. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at the screen, seeing an alert for the live video feed. "Justice for Maya trending, 100K views." She smiled, a sense of power rising within her. She was no longer just a CEO. She was a movement. But as she prepared for the battle ahead, she couldn't shake the feeling that Apex Air was already planning its next move. And when it came, it would be worse than she expected. Maya woke early, her body still heavy from the emotional toll of the day before, but her mind already racing. She had barely slept, her thoughts spiraling between the viral video, the media frenzy, and the looming fight with Apex Air. The events at O'Hare had shaken her, but in a way they had also solidified her purpose. There was no turning back now. Apex had made this personal. She dressed quickly, opting for a sharp black blazer and tailored trousers. She had a meeting with her team scheduled for later, but first she needed to make sure everything was in place for the press conference. The weight of the world seemed to be pressing on her shoulders, but she had learned long ago how to shoulder such burdens. She had built Horizon Innovations from the ground up. There was nothing she couldn't handle. Her phone buzzed incessantly as she moved around the room. Texts from Liam, Priya, and her legal team flooded her inbox, all urgent. She opened the first from Liam. "Press conference at noon. Got a team of top-tier journalists lined up. We're ready to go public. The narrative is set. Apex won't know what hit them." Maya's lips curled into a smile. The storm was coming. She checked her email next. Priya had sent over a report. "All systems are secure. We've backed up all data and are monitoring Apex network for any signs of retaliation. The cyber attack didn't breach our core, but we need to stay vigilant." Maya let out a breath, grateful for Priya's steady hand, even as she knew that the worst was yet to come. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a message from her lawyer, Nadia. "Apex is circling. They're already reaching out to media outlets, trying to spin the narrative. We need to move fast. I'll start preparing the lawsuit." Maya read the message and felt a surge of determination. They were already trying to twist the story, but it wouldn't work. She had too much firepower now. She grabbed her purse, leaving the hotel room and heading down to the lobby where Liam was waiting. It was time to take control of the narrative, to make sure that Apex's lies didn't stand for long. They were going to fight, and they were going to win. Maya's heart beat steadily as she entered the press conference room. She could feel the weight of the room pressing down on her, a mix of anticipation and scrutiny from the journalists who had gathered. The backdrop was simple, with Horizon Innovations logo front and center, but to Maya it felt like the stage for a battle that could determine the course of her career. The spotlight was hers, and she wasn't about to waste it. Liam was already at her side, whispering final instructions as he adjusted his glasses. The reporters are on edge. They'll ask tough questions, but you've got this. Just stay calm and don't let them control the narrative. Maya nodded, taking a deep breath. She could hear the faint hum of cameras being adjusted and the click of reporters typing furiously on their phones. She knew the questions that would come about the viral video, about Apex Air's actions, about the accusations of racism, and she was ready for all of it. As she stepped up to the podium, the room fell silent, the weight of their gazes locking onto her. She glanced briefly at the sea of faces, some skeptical, others sympathetic, and then started speaking, her voice steady, unyielding. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maya Jackson, CEO of Horizon Innovations. I'm here today to speak not only about what happened at O'Hare Airport, but also about what it represents. The ongoing systemic issues that need to be addressed in our society. She paused, allowing the words to sink in. This wasn't just about her. It was about much more. I was humiliated and wrongfully detained by Apex Air yesterday in a situation that has become all too familiar for people of color, especially women in this country. This incident wasn't an isolated one. It's part of a pattern of racial discrimination that continues to affect the lives and careers of many. Maya's words rang out in the room, her gaze unwavering. She wasn't just making an accusation. She was telling the world what they had all been avoiding. She could feel the shift in the room, the subtle change as the journalists leaned forward, their pens poised, ready to capture the truth she was offering. The days following the press conference were a whirlwind, but Maya remained focused. The media buzz from her powerful speech had reached a fever pitch, and the pressure was on Apex Air. But as the public backlash grew, so did the pressure from within. Maya knew that she had to take the next step, to push back even harder, or the momentum would slip from her grasp. She sat in her office at Horizon Innovations, scrolling through the latest news updates, her fingers tapping steadily against the glass desk. Headlines screamed about the ongoing conflict with Apex. Maya Jackson versus Apex, the battle for justice, racial discrimination exposed in major airline scandal. It was exactly what she needed. She had shifted the narrative, but now it was time to go on the offensive. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nadia, her lawyer. Apex is already spinning the story. They're claiming you provoked the incident at O'Hare. They're trying to discredit you. Maya's jaw tightened. This was exactly what she'd expected. Apex Air wasn't about to roll over. They were going to fight dirty, and she had to be prepared for it. Maya took a deep breath and dialed Liam's number. He picked up after a couple of rings, his voice steady, but she could hear the tension in it. We need to make sure we're ahead of them, Maya said, her tone calm but firm. We have to turn their lies into truth, get ahead of their PR team, and make sure the people know what's really happening here. Liam's voice came back quickly, full of determination. Already on it. I've got the digital team running scans on Apex's media activity, looking for any weak spots. We'll have the upper hand soon. Maya nodded to herself, feeling a surge of confidence. But she also knew that they weren't just fighting a PR battle. They were up against an entire system, the systemic racism, the corporate manipulation, the subtle ways that people of color had been pushed aside in corporate America. This fight wasn't just about exposing Apex. It was about exposing the machine that allowed companies like Apex to operate unchecked. As the hours ticked by, Maya sat in her office, the weight of the situation starting to settle in. She had prepared for this moment, but even with all her planning, nothing could have fully prepared her for the psychological toll of the fight ahead. Apex Air had not only attacked her reputation, but was now attempting to manipulate the system, turning the media and public perception against her. Liam had been right. Apex was going to use every weapon in its arsenal. They had already started planting seeds of doubt. Maya had seen the news. The headlines were full of criticisms, insinuations, and outright lies. But she wasn't backing down. By the time the evening came, Maya's team had everything ready. The live stream was set to go, and the world would soon know the truth. She dressed carefully, choosing a white blouse with a black blazer that exuded authority, yet left room for the raw emotion she was about to display. Tonight wasn't just about defending herself. It was about showing everyone the systemic issues she had been fighting against for years. She took a final look at herself in the mirror, her reflection a picture of quiet determination. This fight wasn't about a single person or a single company. It was about everyone who had ever been marginalized, dismissed, or ignored. The more she thought about it, the clearer it became. This was bigger than just Horizon Innovations. This was about disrupting a system that had oppressed so many for so long. As she stepped out onto the stage, the lights from the cameras hit her, and she could feel the intensity of the moment. The audience, both in person and online, was waiting for her to speak. The tension in the air was palpable, a collective breath held, ready to hear what she had to say. Maya didn't hesitate. She took a deep breath and began speaking, her voice steady but with an edge of passion that couldn't be ignored. I stand before you not just as a CEO, but as someone who has experienced firsthand the consequences of a system built on inequality. What happened at O'Hare wasn't just about a mistake in booking a ticket. It was about being treated like I didn't belong. It was about being made to feel invisible. She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. Apex Air thought they could silence me. They thought they could sweep this under the rug and continue to operate as usual. But I'm here to tell you that this is not just my fight. It's a fight for anyone who's been dismissed, who's been made to feel less than. We cannot and will not tolerate this kind of treatment. The room was silent, save for the sound of cameras clicking as her words rippled across the crowd. The audience could feel the sincerity in her voice, the weight of her message. Maya knew she had to strike while the iron was hot. She needed to keep the pressure on to show that this wasn't just a battle over a personal grievance. It was a battle against the systemic racism embedded in corporations and institutions across the nation. As the live stream continued, the comments exploded, the flood of support overwhelming. Thousands, no, millions of people were watching, listening, and rallying behind her. It was the moment she had been waiting for. But even as the tide of support surged, Maya knew this was just the beginning. Apex wasn't going to back down quietly. They would fight back harder, and that meant she had to be prepared for whatever came next. Maya sat in her office, the weight of the last few days settling like a storm cloud overhead. The live stream had been a success, but the road ahead was far from clear. Apex Air, as expected, had fought back hard, throwing everything they had into discrediting her. Their PR team was working overtime, trying to twist the narrative, but the tide was shifting. She could feel it in the way the public was responding. This wasn't just a corporate battle anymore. It was a cultural shift, one that would reverberate far beyond the walls of Horizon Innovations. But even as the tide seemed to turn in her favor, Maya knew that the real fight was just beginning. Apex would not go down without a fight. They were too entrenched, too powerful, and that made them dangerous. She tapped her fingers against the desk, her eyes scanning the latest updates on her laptop. The media was saturated with stories about the racial bias at Apex, but now there were whispers of retaliation. The company was rumored to be preparing a counterattack, something more subtle, something designed to target her on a personal level. It wouldn't be enough to break her, but Maya had learned long ago to never underestimate an opponent, especially one like Apex. A knock on the door broke her concentration, and Liam stepped in, his face as serious as ever. "You've got another call from Nadia," he said, handing her the phone. "She says it's urgent." Maya took the phone, her stomach twisting. Nadia had been the one to push her to go public, to take this fight beyond the walls of Horizon. She trusted her, but the pressure was mounting, and Maya knew that whatever Nadia had to say was likely bad news. She hit the button, her voice tight. "Nadia? Nadia Patel," came the lawyer's voice, sharp and grim. Maya, Apex has filed a suit. They're accusing you of defamation. And worse, they're questioning your company's credibility. They're going after your reputation in the worst possible way. Maya felt a pang of anger. Of course, they would try to turn it all around. She could feel the rage building, but she held it in check. What are they claiming exactly? They're saying that you've manipulated the media and distorted the truth for personal gain. They've got some of their own evidence they're planning to leak in the next few days. They're going to try to turn the public against you. This could get ugly. Maya's grip on the phone tightened. The suit wasn't just a legal maneuver. It was a calculated attack on everything she had worked for. Apex was trying to discredit her, to destroy her reputation. And if they succeeded, Horizon Innovations could collapse along with it. She had known they would retaliate, but hearing it from Nadia made it all feel real. The fight was no longer just about a public spat. It was a war for survival. She took a deep breath, pushing the fear aside. "I won't let them get away with this," she said, her voice low but steady. "What's our next move?" Nadia was silent for a moment before responding, her tone measured. "We need to move fast. I've already started prepping a counterclaim. We'll challenge their accusations and expose their dirty tactics. But Maya, this is going to take everything we've got. You're going to have to play the long game and stay in the public eye. We can't let them control the narrative anymore." Maya nodded, her resolve hardening. "I'll do whatever it takes. Let's bring it to them." The call ended, and for a moment, Maya just stood there, staring at the blank screen of her laptop. The weight of the situation threatened to swallow her, but she couldn't afford to let it. She had been underestimated her whole life, and now was no different. Apex might think they had her cornered, but they were wrong. Maya had always thrived in the fight, and she wasn't about to stop now. She turned to Liam, who had been quietly watching her. "We need to counterattack," she said, her voice sharper now. "Get the team together. We're not just going to defend ourselves. We're going to expose Apex for what they really are. If they want a war, we'll give them one." Liam gave a tight nod. "I'm on it. We'll get everything set up. You'll need to be ready for the media storm, though. It's going to get worse before it gets better." Maya didn't flinch. "I've been through worse. Let's make sure we have all the evidence, and we go public again on our terms." As Liam left to rally the team, Maya stood at the window, watching the city lights flicker beneath the rain. She wasn't going to back down. Apex Air had made their move, but now it was time for her to make hers. This wasn't just about clearing her name. It was about showing the world that you could take down giants, that you could fight back, and you could win. Maya was ready for the next battle. The war had only just begun. Maya sat at her desk, the weight of the past week pressing down on her. The media had gone quiet for a moment, the flurry of attention from her press conference and Apex's retaliation beginning to settle. But she knew the calm before the storm was always the most dangerous. Apex wasn't finished yet. Their PR machine was relentless, and their resources seemed endless. They were going to hit her again, and this time it would be something more personal. She rubbed her temples, trying to focus. The lawsuit, the media blitz, the constant attacks, it was all a lot to manage. But she had built Horizon Innovations from nothing, fighting every step of the way. This wouldn't be the fight that took her down. Her phone buzzed on the desk, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a text from Nadia. "They're circling. Expect something bigger soon. Be ready." Maya's stomach twisted. She had hoped it wouldn't come to this, but the signs were clear. Apex wasn't going to play fair. They were going to escalate things to a level she hadn't anticipated. She picked up her phone and dialed Liam. "We need to prepare for an attack that goes beyond media. Apex is going to try to hit us where it hurts. Personally, I need you to get the security team involved. I want full protection for me and the team, effective immediately." "Got it," Liam replied. There was a moment of silence on the other end, and then he added, "We're already digging into Apex internal connections. I think there's a bigger play here, something they don't want to get out. If we find it, it could change everything." Maya's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" Liam's voice dropped lower. "I think they've got a mole inside Horizon, someone who's been feeding them information. If we don't get ahead of this, They'll have more than just PR to use against us. Maya's blood ran cold. A mole. The thought of someone inside her company working for Apex made her skin crawl. But if there was one thing she had learned over the years, it was that betrayal came in many forms. Maya clenched her fists, her mind racing. If there was a mole within Horizon, it could unravel everything she had worked so hard to build. Trust was the foundation of any company, and the thought of someone betraying that trust was a punch to the gut. She knew she couldn't let it slide no matter how difficult the situation became. Liam, we need to find this mole. Fast, she said, her voice low but filled with an intensity that could not be ignored. I want every department vetted. Security, IT, operations, everyone. And I want them to know we're doing it. No more surprises. Liam hesitated for a moment. I'll get the team on it. But Maya, be careful. If they've been feeding Apex information for this long, they're not just going to back off. I know, Maya replied, but I've been underestimated before. I'm not going to let them get the better of me now. She hung up, her mind already shifting to the next phase of the fight. She had to be strategic. She had to make sure her next move was calculated, swift, and relentless. The mole inside Horizon was a threat, but it wasn't her biggest one. Apex had just shown their hand, but she could see their game clearer now. If they thought they could break her with a mole, they had another thing coming. She paced the floor of her office, trying to calm her racing thoughts. She needed to act fast. The media was quiet, but Apex's next move could come at any time. She could already feel it. The calm was just a lull before the storm. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Priya, Horizon's head of IT. We found the breach. It's bigger than we thought. The mole has been leaking tech specs and internal plans to Apex for weeks. They've been preparing for this. Maya's blood ran cold. This wasn't just an attack on her reputation. It was a full-scale corporate war. And they had been losing ground without even knowing it. Maya stood by the window of her office, her eyes scanning the city below as the storm clouds of the last few weeks loomed heavier than ever. The pressure was building, and she could feel it in every corner of her company. It wasn't just the battle with Apex that was weighing on her. It was the mole inside Horizon, the traitor lurking in the shadows, threatening everything she had built. Liam's voice echoed in her mind. The mole's been feeding them information for weeks. They've known about our plans, our weaknesses, everything. It's like they've been one step ahead of us this whole time. Maya clenched her jaw. The thought of someone betraying her trust like this made her blood boil. Every action she'd taken to protect Horizon now felt like it had been compromised. But she wasn't going to let fear take hold. She had come this far, and no mole, no corporation, was going to take her down. She turned from the window, the city skyline glimmering in the rain-soaked streets, and glanced at the monitors on her desk. Priya's latest report was still open on the screen. The words "breach detected" flashing ominously in red. The mole's access had been deeper than they realized. Internal documents, strategic planning, even company financials. They had been leaking everything. But what hurt most wasn't just the data they had stolen. It was the trust that had been shattered. Horizon wasn't just a company to Maya. It was her life's work, built from the ground up with blood, sweat, and tears. And now it was under attack from within. Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Nadia, her lawyer. Apex is making their move. They're about to release a smear campaign with a twist. Get ready for the worst. Maya's heart sank. She had been waiting for this, but she hadn't expected it to come so soon. Apex was stepping up their game, using everything at their disposal to bring her down. Maya took a deep breath and quickly dialed Liam's number. She needed to move fast, and they had to stay one step ahead of Apex. Liam answered on the second ring, his voice tense. What's the word? Apex is releasing a smear campaign, Maya said, her voice calm but her mind racing. They're going to twist the narrative. We have to hit them harder, but we need to keep our moves quiet for now. I don't trust anything that could leak. Liam's voice was firm, unwavering. Understood. I'm already looking into the mole situation, but it's more complicated than we thought. We've got to get ahead of Apex's play before it escalates. Maya's thoughts began to shift, her mind working in overdrive. It wasn't just about protecting Horizon anymore. It was about taking control of the story and making sure the public knew the truth about what was happening inside Apex. But she couldn't afford any more distractions. Her people, her team, needed her focus. If there was a mole inside Horizon, they had to find them before Apex did. As she paced around her office, Maya's mind raced through every possible avenue of attack. The mole, the smear campaign, the media, they were all interconnected in a web of lies and deception. If Apex was going to play dirty, so would she. But she needed solid proof, something tangible that would turn the tide in her favor. She looked down at her desk, her laptop still open to Priya's latest findings. The mole had been gathering intel on their next big moves, possibly even manipulating her internal systems. She knew what had to be done. I want every person who's had access to our internal systems investigated, Maya said, her voice clipped with determination. I don't care how many resources it takes. We find them, or we take this fight to Apex, and we make them regret this. No more games. Liam paused before responding. I'll make sure we pull in the right people. We're going to get ahead of this. But Maya, you need to be ready for what's coming. Apex isn't going to back down, and they'll fight dirty. Maya glanced back at the city skyline, the dark clouds beginning to break apart, giving way to the first rays of sunlight. She felt a surge of confidence wash over her. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one brewing inside her, nothing she couldn't handle. I've been ready, she said with quiet conviction. Let's finish this. Maya sat in the sleek, modern conference room at Horizon Innovations, the flickering glow of the digital screens casting sharp shadows across her face. It had been days since she'd last slept properly, but the exhaustion didn't matter. Every minute was critical. She had her team assembled, Liam, Priya, and Nadia, all working around the clock to turn the tables on Apex. Where do we stand? Maya asked, her voice low but full of steel. She didn't have time for half measures or delays. This had gone far beyond a media war. Apex had attacked her on every front, from her reputation to the stability of her company. And now, with the mole still unaccounted for, the clock was ticking. Liam, standing near the window with a laptop open, looked up. His face was set in determination. We've got some good news and bad news. We've traced the data leak to a former employee, Kyle Reese. We've already got his last known location, but he's in hiding, and Apex is using him like a puppet. It's not just internal leaks anymore. He's been selling information directly to them. Maya's fist clenched at her side. Kyle Reese. He had been part of Horizon from the early days. Someone she trusted. The betrayal hit deeper than she expected. But she knew it wasn't the time to dwell on personal feelings. We can't let him slip away. Get our team on the ground. I want eyes on him immediately. Priya, who had been reviewing security footage, spoke up. We've got our IT team monitoring all possible channels. If Reese is still active, he's either working remotely or hiding somewhere within Apex's system. We're tracking every possible route. Maya's thoughts were racing. She had been prepared for many things, but not for this level of internal sabotage. She turned her attention to Nadia, who was sitting across the table, her brow furrowed as she glanced over her notes. Do we have legal options to take action on the mole? Maya asked. Nadia hesitated for a moment, her fingers drumming against the table. It's tricky. Kyle's been careful. He has plausible deniability, but we can definitely make a move on him once we've got hard evidence. If we go public with his identity before that, Apex will have a field day. It's a game of timing. Maya nodded, her mind already spinning the next steps. The legal path would have to wait. It was time for direct action. We don't have the luxury of waiting. Apex isn't going to stop until they've crushed us. We strike first. Maya stood up from the conference table, her gaze sharp and unwavering as she faced her team. The tension in the room was palpable, but she could feel the energy shifting. They were on the brink of something big. If they moved quickly, they could turn the situation to their advantage. Let's break this down, Maya said, her voice commanding. Kyle Reese is the key. If we can't get to him directly, we'll go after Apex's weakness. We need to expose them in a way they can't ignore. Get me everything on their operations, their contracts, the people they work with. If Reese is the mole, he's only a small piece of the puzzle. Liam nodded, tapping furiously on his laptop. I've got the legal team pulling documents and contracts. If there's a weak link, we'll find it. Maya turned to Priya. What about security? Are we ready if Reese tries to run or if Apex pulls something to throw us off? We're setting up secure channels for the investigation, Priya replied. We'll monitor every move Reese makes, and if Apex tries to make a move on us, we'll know before they can strike. I've already alerted the security team to be ready for anything. Maya took a breath, her thoughts aligning as she visualized the next steps. Once we have the proof, we go public. The world will know what Apex has been hiding. They thought they could bury us. Now it's time to expose their corruption. Nadia leaned forward, her voice cool and strategic. You're right, Maya. We can't afford to be passive, but we also need to be careful. Apex will retaliate, and they have power. We've seen how far they're willing to go. Maya's jaw tightened. Let them come. We'll be ready. The team exchanged glances, understanding the gravity of the moment. There was no turning back now. Apex had made their move, and Horizon Innovations wasn't just going to survive. They were going to fight back and win. As the meeting concluded, Maya felt a surge of adrenaline. They were on the offensive now, but the stakes had never been higher. She walked toward her office, her mind already working out the details of the plan. The next few days would define everything. But for the first time in weeks, Maya felt a sense of clarity. It was time to strike at the heart of Apex, and she wasn't going to miss. The air in Maya's office felt heavy, charged with the electricity of a battle long in the making. The next few hours were crucial. Everything was in motion now. They had their sights set on Kyle Reese, the mole. But Maya knew they couldn't just act on instinct alone. They needed hard, irrefutable proof to take down both the mole and Apex's entire operation. If they couldn't connect the dots, if they couldn't make their move count, everything could come crashing down. Liam had already mobilized their best team for the task. The legal department was combing through every contract Apex had with Horizon, searching for inconsistencies, potential conflicts of interest, and any connections that might tie back to Reese. The IT team under Priya's command was tracing Reese's activities, finding the cracks in the system that would lead them to the mole's next move. But Maya couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. She could practically hear the ticking of a clock, counting down to the moment when Apex would retaliate with everything they had. She had spent too many years working to build Horizon into what it was, a company that was finally being recognized for its innovation and its leadership in tech. She wasn't going to let it all slip away because of a betrayal from within. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Nadia. Apex just dropped another bomb. They're accusing you of espionage now. They've got an anonymous source claiming you're behind the leaks, working with foreign interests. Maya's heart sank, but she didn't show it. She knew Apex would go to any lengths to destroy her. Espionage? That was a serious accusation, one that could turn the public's support against her in an instant. She had to act fast and make sure her next move wasn't just calculated. It had to be flawless. Liam, Maya said, dialing his number, get me everything on that new accusation. I want to shut this down before it gains any traction. Liam picked up the phone quickly, his voice tense but steady. I'm on it, Maya. I've got the legal team working on tracing where this accusation is coming from. If they're using a foreign source as leverage, we need to expose it as a lie. Maya felt the weight of the situation settling in. Apex wasn't just fighting back. They were going after her credibility with everything they had. But she couldn't afford to let them control the narrative. Not now. Not when she was so close. I need you to dig into this anonymous source, Maya continued. There's no way they're just pulling this out of thin air. Find out who's behind it, and fast. I want to know who's feeding them this garbage. Liam's response was quick, but Maya could hear the urgency in his voice. Already in motion. I'll loop you in once we have something concrete. This could be their Hail Mary, Maya, so we need to hit back hard. Maya ended the call and turned her focus back to the screen in front of her. The weight of what was happening pressed down on her shoulders, but she refused to let it break her. This was war, and she wasn't backing down. Her thoughts shifted to the next phase of her plan. Once they got the proof they needed, she was going public. She had to make sure her team was ready. This would be their moment to take down Apex and expose them for the corporate giant they really were. She wasn't going to let them win by playing dirty. She was going to show the world that she could fight harder, smarter, and with the truth on her side. As the minutes passed, the door to her office opened and Priya stepped in, her expression grave. We've traced the leak to a new set of channels Reese has been using. He's been covering his tracks well, but we've got a lead. Maya straightened in her chair, her eyes narrowing. What kind of lead? We're tracking a set of encrypted emails between him and an Apex executive, Priya replied. If we can break the encryption, we'll have the smoking gun we need. Maya's pulse quickened. Do whatever it takes to get it. We can't afford to miss this. Maya stood at the edge of the rooftop, staring out over the sprawling city of Chicago. The skyline, once a symbol of success and progress, now felt like a battleground. It had been a long, grueling battle with Apex Air, and she knew the war was far from over. But tonight something had changed. They had the proof they needed to expose the corruption within Apex. The encrypted emails Priya's team had cracked were a game changer. Inside those messages, there were direct communications between Kyle Reese and an Apex executive, detailing everything from Horizon's internal operations to their most closely guarded secrets. Reese had been more than a mole. He was a conduit for Apex to pull Horizon's strings from the inside. With the smoking gun in her hands, Maya knew that tonight would be the turning point. She had spent weeks in the shadows playing defense, but now it was time to go on the offense. She glanced down at her phone, which buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from Liam. We're ready. The broadcast is set. The world is going to hear this. The plan was simple but devastating. The moment she hit send, the world would know the truth. She had already prepared a video, a statement that would break the dam wide open. It wasn't just about exposing Reese or Apex. It was about showing the world that no one was untouchable. She had fought her entire life to get to this point, and she wasn't going to let Apex destroy everything she had built. The wind picked up, biting through her blazer as she stepped away from the edge, her resolve hardening. She dialed Nadia's number. It's time, Maya said, her voice steady. Prepare the team for the live stream. We're going public. Nadia's voice crackled through the line, a steady, reassuring presence. Got it. The world will hear you, Maya. This is your moment. Maya took one last breath before hitting send on the message to Liam. The world was about to change. The minutes seemed to stretch out as Maya sat in her office, waiting for the live stream to begin. Her pulse thudded in her ears, the weight of the moment pressing down on her chest. This was it. There would be no turning back after tonight. The world would finally know the truth, and Apex would be exposed for the corrupt, manipulative corporation it truly was. Her phone buzzed again, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was Liam. We're live. The cameras are rolling and the feed is secure. Maya took a deep breath, steadying herself. The stakes had never been higher. The world was watching. This was her chance to make a lasting impact, not just on Apex, but on the entire corporate system that allowed corruption to fester unchecked. She stood up from her desk and walked over to the large screen that was set up in her office for video conferences. Her reflection stared back at her, but tonight, it wasn't just her face that would be on screen. It was the face of an entire movement, a battle for truth and justice that had started the moment Apex tried to take her down. She adjusted her blazer, composed herself, and then clicked the button to go live. The feed blinked to life, and the world began to hear her words. Good evening, Maya's voice rang out, clear and strong. I'm Maya Jackson, CEO of Horizon Innovations. Tonight, I'm here to expose something that's been hidden for far too long. Over the past few weeks, you've seen the smear campaigns, the lies, and the manipulation by Apex Air. What they didn't count on was that I wouldn't back down. I stand here today not just as the leader of a tech company, but as someone who has fought every single day to create a space where fairness, transparency, and integrity are at the heart of everything we do. She paused for a moment, letting her words sink in before continuing. Apex thought they could break me by turning the media against me, by planting false accusations, and even going as far as accusing me of espionage. But I'm not here to defend myself. I'm here to show you the truth about Apex, and the truth about what they've been hiding all along. Maya clicked a button, and the screen behind her switched to a series of images. Screenshots of the emails Priya's team had uncovered. These are just some of the communications between Kyle Reese, a former Horizon employee, and executives at Apex. These messages detail how they have been using Horizon's own internal information to manipulate the tech industry and steal from hardworking companies like ours. The room was silent as the video feed continued to run, showing the damning evidence of Apex's corruption. Maya watched herself on the screen, her face calm, but her eyes burning with purpose. She had exposed them. There was no turning back now. The emails, the leaks, the covert operations. Apex had been pulling the strings from within, manipulating every move Horizon made, and they had been getting away with it for far too long. Maya's fingers rested on the desk, the hum of her own breath, the only sound filling the space. She could feel the weight of the world shifting. Apex had been a titan in the industry, but Maya knew the truth would break their hold. Their empire was built on deceit, and she was here to tear it down, piece by piece. But as the live stream continued, a sense of unease crept over her. She had done what she needed to do, but now she was waiting for the inevitable backlash. The public would have questions. The media would want more. She wasn't naive enough to think that revealing the truth would make Apex back down quietly. They would come at her harder now, pulling every trick they had left to discredit her, to tear her apart. Her phone buzzed once again. It was a message from Nadia. The media is already picking up on the emails. Apex is scrambling. They're about to make their move. Get ready. Maya stood up, her eyes hardening. Let them come, she muttered under her breath. She had never been one to shy away from a fight. It was what had gotten her this far, her refusal to back down no matter the odds. But she wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for her team, for Horizon, for everyone who had ever believed in her vision. She was fighting for justice. She turned back to the screen, watching as the live feed started to rack up views. Thousands, tens of thousands. People were watching, people were listening. The truth was spreading, and no amount of money or power from Apex could stop it now. As the live stream continued, Maya could see the numbers ticking upward in real time. More and more viewers were tuning in, their comments flooding the screen. Some were shocked, others outraged, but many were supportive. The overwhelming tide of support felt like a wave she could ride to victory, but she knew this was only the beginning. Apex wouldn't go down without a fight. They were too powerful, too entrenched in the industry. Her phone buzzed again. It was Liam. The media's running with it. Apex is scrambling. They've issued a statement, denying everything, of course, but they're already circling. Expect something big soon? Maya took a deep breath and typed back. Let them circle. We've already got them in a corner. They're running out of options. She paused for a moment, allowing herself a brief flicker of satisfaction before shaking it off. This was far from over. Apex had deep pockets and vast resources, and they would stop at nothing to protect their empire. Maya knew they would fight dirty, and likely they would bring in people from the highest levels of power. But she had the truth on her side, and that was something they couldn't buy or manipulate. As the live stream wound down, Maya leaned back in her chair, looking at her reflection in the screen. She was about to take a step into the unknown, and she couldn't help but wonder how deep Apex's retaliation would go. They had already shown their hand by planting false accusations, spreading rumors, and even setting up legal battles. But what would they do next? The question gnawed at her as she turned toward her team. Nadia, Priya, and Liam had been working tirelessly behind the scenes, each of them a vital piece of the machine that had kept Horizon moving forward. Maya knew they were all prepared for whatever came next, but there was a tension in the air that was hard to shake. Apex had power, yes, but they lacked the one thing Horizon had: unity. All right, Maya said, her voice steady but with an edge of determination. It's time we make our next move. We stay ahead of them. We hit them where it hurts, and we don't let up until they're exposed for everything they've done. Her team nodded in agreement, the weight of their shared purpose hanging between them. They weren't just fighting for a company anymore. They were fighting for something far bigger: justice. And this time, they weren't going to lose. Maya stood in front of the courthouse, the cool wind tousling her hair as the morning sun broke through the clouds. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of meetings, press conferences, and late nights spent planning. Today, however, was the day that would finally decide it all. Apex had tried to destroy her, tried to tear down Horizon, her life's work, and even her very reputation. But now it was her turn to strike the final blow. The media was buzzing with anticipation. The press had been waiting outside for hours, eager for the latest updates. Maya had remained silent through most of the battle, letting the facts speak for themselves. But today she wasn't holding back. She had exposed Apex's corruption. She had revealed their internal scheming, the leaks, the manipulation. And now it was time for the world to see the final chapter of this saga. She walked up the steps toward the courthouse, the weight of the moment pressing heavily on her chest. The doors opened before her, and she entered, flanked by her team. Liam, Priya, and Nadia followed closely behind, each of them looking more determined than ever. Horizon had been through hell, but they were still standing. And today, Maya would make sure that Apex paid for everything they had done. Inside the courthouse, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Apex lawyers were already seated, their eyes cold and calculating. Chuck Donovan, Apex's CEO, stood at the front, his expression a mix of arrogance and disdain. The same man who had tried to destroy her now stood on the opposite side, his empire crumbling piece by piece. But Maya didn't flinch. She walked to her seat with confidence, every step a testament to the battles she had won and the ones still to come. She had come from nothing, from the streets of Chicago to the CEO of one of the most innovative tech companies in the world. And now she was about to finish what she had started. As Maya sat down, the room grew eerily quiet, the murmurs of the press and the faint shuffle of papers, the only sounds in the air. Her heart beat steadily, each pulse a reminder of everything she had endured to get to this moment. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for every person who had ever been underestimated, for every dream that had been trampled by corruption, for every injustice that had gone unchecked. The judge entered the room, and the silence deepened as everyone stood. Maya straightened in her seat, her gaze unwavering, the fire in her eyes still burning bright. She had already won the public battle. Her live stream had gone viral. The evidence had been irrefutable. But today, in this room, Apex would be forced to answer for everything. The case began, and Maya watched as Apex's lawyers tried to spin their version of events. They danced around the facts, making wild accusations, trying to paint her as a corporate thief, a woman who had lied and manipulated to get ahead. But Maya didn't flinch. She knew what was coming. She had prepared for every angle, every possible attack. When it was her turn, she stood up slowly, her voice steady but full of conviction. "Your Honor, I didn't come here today to tear Apex down. I came here because it was time for the truth to come out," she began. "I spent my life building Horizon, and I spent my life fighting for something I believed in: integrity. I didn't build my company by tearing others down or manipulating the system. Apex tried to destroy everything I've worked for, but they forgot one thing: the truth." She turned toward the judge, her gaze unwavering. "Apex has used lies, intimidation, and corruption to build their empire, but it's all falling apart now. Today we expose that. The world will know what they've done, and they will answer for it." The room was still. The weight of her words hung in the air like a heavy fog. The truth had been revealed, and there was no way for Apex to hide anymore. The damage was done. And just like that, the final chapter of this battle was written. Apex, once untouchable, was now crumbling before everyone's eyes. Maya had fought for justice, and today justice was finally served.